Welcome to this conversation on India's most enduring and yet least examined policies, the 3-language formula for school students. I am Dr. Amalur Pavanathan and I have here with me today Mr. K. Ashok Shetty. Mr. Shetty was a former IAS officer of Tamil Nadu cadre. He was also the former registrar of Madras University and former vice chancellor of Indian Maritime University, Chennai. Mr. Shetty wrote 2 articles recently on the new education policy. The first one was in English and it was published in the Hindu. It was titled "The Flawed Push for a Third Language." His second article was in Tamil. It was in Ananda Vigadan and titled "Mummozhi Kolgai Endra Pizhayana Muyarchi." Roughly translated, it is the misguided attempt at a 3-language policy. Both articles are going viral in social media and well appreciated by readers. Today we are delving deep into this 3-language formula, its promises, implementation challenges and what the evidence actually tells us about the outcomes. We will also explore its impact on students across different backgrounds, global lessons learned or failed to learn, and what a more inclusive and effective alternate might look like. Let us get started. So, let me first start with this. What is this 3-language formula and what were its original objectives? Can you just go back to the history of it, sir?
This 3-language formula was launched in 1968.
Yes, sir.
Originally, the idea was that school students will learn in their native language, whatever the regional language of the state, that is as language 1, L1, then Hindi, I am talking of non-Hindi speaking states, as L2 and English as L3, and or vice versa, it could be English L2 and Hindi L3. In Hindi speaking states, they were supposed to learn Hindi as the native language or
L1.
mother tongue, L1. One other state's language is L2 and English as L3 or vice versa, L3 and L2 can be switched. But in reality, this never really happened. Only Tamil Nadu was the sole exception. Right from 1968, Tamil Nadu has been steadfastly following a 2-language policy. Okay. Tamil and English. You asked about the aims of this 3-language formula. The stated aims were: 1, promoting multilingualism; 2, promoting national unity and integrity; 3, facilitating interstate mobility; and 4, enhancing career opportunities. These were the stated objectives, but my point in both the articles that I wrote is none of these objectives has been achieved. I will explain why later.
As you said, this was implemented from 1968 onwards across the country. Yeah. Now, if it had been across the country for so many years, we must be able to draw some lessons from the census. Yes. What do we do?
The latest census data available, as you know, Doctor, is only 2011 census. By the time this 3-language formula had been in place for 43 years.
40 years, yeah.
40 and more years. So, you would expect at least 40, 50, 60% of the students of the population to be trilingual. But you will be shocked to know that as per the 2011 census, the percentage of Indians who can speak 3 languages is only 7%. 7% for the whole country.
So, this is quite shocking.
It is only 7%.
This is in spite of the mandated policy that had been operational for 43 years.
Yes. So, you can please check. If you in the major Hindi states, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, it is 1 to 2%. It is less than 2%. Forget about trilingualism. Even bilingual, how many people know 2 languages? Census 2011 says only 26% of Indians can speak 2 languages. And in these 5 major Hindi speaking states, the percentage is between 10 and 15%. So, not only trilingualism is, the experiment is a failure, even bilingualism is elusive. After 43 years of implementation of the formula, even bilingualism is elusive. So, this is my point. As a medical doctor, you know that you believe in this evidence-based medicine. Physicians and surgeons, they don't operate on hunches or untested assumptions. You would like solid real world data research, analysis. That's how. The same funda applies to policy making also. There is a term in English called evidence-based policy making. So policy making should be grounded in real world data. It should be grounded in rigorous research, and it should be grounded in proper statistical analysis and other analysis. But in reality, what happens is, I'm not talking only about central government or state government, across the country, and usually in most parts of the world also, this problem is there. Policies are framed based on untested assumptions, hunches, on ideology, on political expediency. I mean, these are the basis on which policies are really framed. And this is a classic example. This three-language formula is a top-down, ideology-driven policy that is not grounded in data, and the evidence is actually strongly against it. It shows that the policy has failed.
So, this is quite shocking to me. There is a policy for 40 and more years, and there is enough objective data gathered by their own agency, that the Census Commission of India. And do you tell us that this strong evidence was totally ignored while framing this new education policy? Do you say that, sir?
Yes, I think the National Education Policy 2020 should have taken all this data into account.
They haven't?
They haven't taken it into account. In fact, apart from the census data, there are also what are called education surveys. For example, since 2001, Government of India conducts what is called a National Achievement Survey, NAS, once in 3 years for students of classes 3, 5, 8 and 10.
And it's a Government of India?
It's a Government of India survey. Once in 3 years they do it to assess the learning outcomes in various subjects, languages, maths, science and things like that. Now you'll be shocked to know that, I think 2016 or 18 survey said that less than 50% of the class 8 students can read a paragraph properly, or can write a letter, or can understand the grammar in their own mother tongue, native language, regional language, L1. Less than 50% can do this even their own mother tongue. And L2, English, their proficiency is even worse. What you must notice, Government of India surveys don't test the proficiency in the third language.
Why is that?
Deliberate, because they know that the third language proficiency is terrible. As I told you, the census data shows that after 43 years, only 7% of Indians are trilingual, and we don't know how proficient they are, even though 7% how proficient they are, and many of them might have learnt it on the job also. They may not have learned it in schools.
Sir, again I am surprised, sorry to interrupt you. There is a policy, stated policy of the Government of India for 43 years, and there is a survey conducted by Government of India every 3 years, and yet they choose to ignore what is one of the crucial policy recommendations.
There's one more survey, doctor. This is not by Government of India. This is by an NGO called Pratham. They conduct a survey called Annual State of Education Report. It's called ASER. But they do it only for rural schools. They assess the enrollment and learning outcomes in rural schools. Now that has an even more depressing story to tell. For example, in 2018, 27% of class 8 students couldn't read a simple class 2 level text in their regional language or Hindi. In 2022, this figure was 30%. And English proficiency is 8th standard students can't read even 2 sentences in English properly, 2 sentences or 3 sentences in English properly. So this is an independent NGO, but even this NGO Pratham, they are also not assessing the third language proficiency.
Why is that again?
I don't know. Maybe they think it is no point in assessing it because things are so bad. Why highlight? Or maybe Government of India has told them not. I don't know. I really don't know. But maybe they have been told that don't assess it or something. So if you are really grounding your policy on data, and this, as you know, this National Education Policy came in 2020. Now what I would have expected is they should have discussed all this data. They should have discussed the census data. They should have discussed the various NAS survey data. They should discuss the ASER data. National Education Policy doesn't even make a mention of the fact that there is this data gap. This data gap in assessing third language proficiency. They should have mentioned it. They should have said we find that there is no, this thing is not being assessed. We recommend that in future this should be assessed. So the very fact that they are silent, they are glossing over this data gap. The very fact that they are glossing over all the results thrown up by the census and the education surveys show that this is the thing is not rooted in data, it is more driven by ideology. And there's one more point, doctor, if you don't mind. See, there is a international survey called PISA. program for international student assessment or something conducted by OECD, the Rich Countries Club. That is also done once in 3 years since 2000. Now, India participated in this PISA in 2009.
2009. Okay, sir.
This PISA is a test administered to 9th standard students, 15-year-old students, in 3 areas. One is reading, second is maths, third is science. Reading, maths and science. Now, in 2009, India participated and there were totally 74 countries, participating countries. And guess what was India's rank? It was 73 out of 74. And the schools from 2 of the best states were represented. That is Tamil Nadu and Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh is a fairly good state as far as education is concerned. Even then we came only 73rd out of 74 countries, just ahead of Kyrgyzstan. So then we boycotted or didn't participate in PISA 2012, 2015, 2018. Government of India announced that we will participate in PISA 2021. Then COVID came, that PISA was pushed to 2022. Government of India pulled out at the last minute. Now there are recently reports saying that PISA 2025 also we are not going to participate. Now the point I am trying to say is, this shows that our school education system is broken. It's not in great shape. Fine. If we know that there's a problem, there's a step we can improve upon it. Accept the problem and address it. Now the point is, when your school education system is so broken, when you are not able to teach even 2 languages properly, why are you imposing a 3rd language? That's my simple argument. That is, isn't it better to teach 2 languages well rather than 3 languages badly? And aren't you, and isn't your action of not assessing the proficiency in the 3rd language and not taking the census data and the education surveys data into account while framing the national education policy, doesn't it tell its own tale? This shows that this is not data driven, it is more ideology driven.
So obviously, sir, there is a wealth of data generated nationally, and there is a data coming from abroad about the educational status of our 2 of the cream states of the country, and yet the new education policy chose to ignore that.
Sorry, let me mention one more thing, Doctor. I told you about this PISA. See, Singapore schools, for example, they have got an excellent school system. In 2015, they stood first in the world. 2018, they stood second. 2022, they stood first again. China stood first in 2018. Countries like Finland, Estonia, Canada, China, they are usually in the top 10. So all these countries have excellent school education system. So unless you have a very good our focus should be on strengthening our school education system, not on teaching a 3rd language when even students are not able to cope with even their first 2 languages, L1 and L2 we call them. When you are not able to cope with L1 and L2, when you are not proficient enough in L1 and L2, why are you imposing a 3rd language? That's the thrust of my article.
So when the message is uncomfortable, we chose to shoot the messenger rather than accept the message.
I think, it's an old human failing, as you all know. The human failing is we jump to conclusions, we make snap judgments without adequate data, sometimes with 0 data also. It's a human failing. And even when contradictory evidence is presented, we are not willing to change our position. Now policy making should, at least government policy making should be free from these kind of biases. This is a cognitive bias rooted in human psychology. You can't help it. But at least in the policy making, because it means you are unnecessarily wasting a lot of money, time, effort, and you are putting children through the grind. Whether we should do all this, isn't the money better spent on something else? All these questions arise.
Sir, I can understand cognitive bias of or individual human behavior. To eliminate the individual human behavior, we have committees, we have commissions, and we have huge group of officers deciding these policies. So individual bias cannot be attributed to a cream group which is shaping the policy. So the only alternative that is for me to conclude is that this is, as you correctly said, ideology driven.
Yes, I think it is. We have to admit the fact that it is.
They probably knew all these things.
Driven. I wouldn't know that. They should be knowing. I would say that since the census data is yours, the ASER data comes year after year, PISA data is there for all to see. I'm sure the policymakers know this. And I also have I find that the debate has been more political than academic.
Yes.
Even the people who are criticizing the National Education Policy 2020, they have not cited all this data. I would appreciate.
I have not.
I would have liked.
I have not seen this earlier.
I would have liked the MPs to say. Would anybody prescribe a medicine which cures only 7% of the patients over a period of 40
Obviously
years?
not.
Obviously, you would
Obviously not at all.
Obviously,
No
you would
question.
discard that medicine.
Yeah.
So somebody should have raised these points. Unfortunately, have not been raised in the parliament or state legislative assemblies. People are not actually looking at hard data, though it is there right in front of us.
Probably now we are giving all these data in public domain. I hope that they will take it up in right earnest.
Let's hope so.
There's often saying that the learning of a third language at a very early stage improves the cognitive abilities of a child. How right is this, sir?
It is like this, doctor. Let me tell you about myself. I know 4 languages. I know English, reading, writing, speaking. I know English, I know Hindi, I know Tamil, I know Kannada. Kannada is my mother tongue. I learned Hindi in school as my first language. In the IAS examination, you have to take one regional language paper. I took Hindi as my regional language paper. I am a great aficionado of Hindi songs, movie songs from 1950s to 1990s.
So am I.
Then I am a great admirer of Munshi Premchand and his novels and short stories. I have nothing against Hindi. I am not biased against Hindi. Don't mistake me.
All of us enjoy Hindi movies.
So, in fact, for a brief period, you won't believe it, for a brief period between my 9th and 11th class, my Hindi was better than my English. It so happened. Now, of course, it has atrophied due to lack of use.
Disuse atrophy.
Lack of use. Now, coming back to your point, because I'm saying this because I can see it see it personally. Learning 2 languages is better than learning 1 language. That is proven. Bilingualism is better than monolingualism. Research has shown convincingly that it improves executive functions, it improves cognitive and it delays dementia. So learning 2 languages is definitely better than learning 1 language. But if you when you learn a 3rd language, 4th language, diminishing return sets in. It is not proportional, it doesn't scale linearly. Diminishing return sets in. And there is what is called a Cambridge Handbook of Third Language Acquisition. It's a classic volume brought out by Cambridge University. It compiles all the research in the third language subject. I would have expected the National Education Policy to have referred to that.
Yes.
In fact, they have brought out a book on 2nd language acquisition and 3rd language acquisition also. 2 books they have brought. It's a compilation of research studies. Now, I had for these articles, I went through this Cambridge Handbook of 3rd language acquisition. Now, they say certain things. First, they say that learning happens when the students are challenged but not overwhelmed.
Can you say that again, sir?
Learning happens when students are challenged but not overwhelmed. Supposing you are already your foundational literacy in L1 and L2 are good, first language and second language are good, then learning a third language is beneficial. But supposing your first language and second language itself are shaky, your knowledge of first language and second language, you are struggling with both of them, which is the case with most of the Indian students, as you can see from the evidence, the education surveys, National Achievement Survey and ASER Survey.
Exactly.
Then learning a third language can lead to reduced learning efficiency across the board. That is, you will not know any language properly. You will not know L1 properly, L2 properly, L3 properly. So, before you start learning L3, you should have a thorough grounding in L1 and L2. Now, as I said, that Pratham survey and ASER survey shows even 8th standard students are not able to read the 2nd standard textbooks or write a decent letter or things like this. When your school system is so broken and your L1 proficiency itself is so bad and your L2 English proficiency is also bad, then it may not be a great idea for you to impose a third language on the people. It's like asking a chap who can't lift 40 kgs weight, asking him to lift 60 kgs. Doesn't make sense. That is the first point. The second point, what Cambridge Handbook of Third Language Acquisition says is, when you study a third language, there is a likelihood of L1 and L2 suffering, because the time is limited. Your L1 and L2 practice will go down, and most likely L2 will suffer, they are saying, because L1 is your mother tongue, mostly your mother tongue, your home, and so most probably L2 will atrophy. This is their second point. And the third point is, nobody can be, very few people, handful of people can be, but most people cannot be equally proficient in all the languages. usually they end up being proficient in one language. You may even end up being proficient in L3. For example, in my case, I would say I'm proficient in English. My second best is Tamil, because now once upon a time I used to be very good at Hindi, but it has atrophied. Kannada is my mother tongue, but it has atrophied, because here I'm not using both those languages much. So it also depends on usage, how much you use, how much you practice. So the third finding of that Cambridge Handbook of Third Language Acquisition is, you will not be nobody will be equally proficient in all the three languages. Usually one of them stands out, the other two decay, they weaken over a period of time. I've seen it happening in my own case. The fourth point they are saying is, when you know several languages, there is a phenomenon called linguistic interference. For example, you can see, when supposing you are talking in English, suddenly a Tamil word
will creep in, yes.
Or you are talking in Tamil and English word
will creep in, yes.
This is the phenomenon called linguistic interference. People who know multiple languages, they usually, use Hindi words or Telugu words or whatever. The linguistic interference happens. There's a mix-up of vocabulary, grammar, and all sorts of things. It happens with everybody. We have seen it happen in our own case. Then there is one more funda. This is, in India, as you know, there are 4 or 5 language families. Indo-Aryan language family, Hindi, Sanskrit, Marathi, Punjabi, Odia, or Bengali, these all belong to that.
Indo-Aryan
language family. Yes. Then you have the Dravidian language family, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, Tulu, and all this. Then you have what are called the Austro-Asiatic language family, this Santali and all those are tribal languages, many of them. Then you have the Tibeto-Burman Northeastern. They are also predominantly tribal languages. So these are 4 big families. There are others also. The point is, for a Marathi student or a Punjabi student or an Odia student, it's quite easy to learn Hindi or Sanskrit, because they all belong to the same language family. But for a Tamilian student or a Malayali student, it's quite difficult to pick up Hindi and Sanskrit, because they belong to entirely different language families. It's almost as difficult, I would say, not equal, almost as difficult for a Tamilian to learn Hindi as it is for him to learn Chinese. Chinese is definitely more difficult, but I'm saying it's nearly as difficult, because they belong to entirely different. Now, national education policy doesn't take all this linguistic distance concept into account at all. Similarly, it is difficult for the speakers of Austro-Asian languages, speakers of the Tibeto-Burman languages, that is mostly the tribal students, to learn these Indo-Aryan languages like Hindi and Sanskrit. So it makes an unequal learning burden. It places an asymmetric learning burden. Children speaking these 3 language groups, Dravidian, Austro-Asiatic, and Tibeto-Burman, they find it more difficult to pick up Hindi or Sanskrit than children of the Indo-Aryan, speaking Indo-Aryan family languages. There is no discussion about this point at all, though it is well established.
Sir, this is a very good point from the point of anthropology, that distinct families have distinct languages, and learning each other is quite easier than learning a language from some other family, and this puts some at a disadvantage over others, and this is a very vital point. And
so, for example, the Cambridge Handbook says, it uses a term, it calls facilitative transfer and non-facilitative transfer. That is, for a Marathi or Odia or Punjabi students, learning Hindi involves facilitative transfer, because the grammar, syntax, phonetics, they're all similar. But for students from Tamil or Santali or Mizo, there is a non-facilitative transfer. The grammar, syntax, phonetics, they're all entirely difficult. They're mutually unintelligible. The 2 languages a Marathi may understand without learning Hindi at all, he may understand something about Hindi. Whereas a Tamilian cannot understand Hindi at all if he hasn't learned Hindi.
Exactly, sir. We can understand Malayalam or Kannada much better than Hindi or Bhojpuri. And this point was never discussed?
No, it was not discussed at all. So, no, you may say, okay, why don't we put a condition that Indo-Aryan speakers' 3rd language should be one from Dravidian language or Austro-Asiatic, or they have not put that condition. I wouldn't say that. I am saying the 3rd language is not necessary at all. So if at all you want to make the burden equal, symmetric, then you should be saying Indo-Aryan language speaker, a Marathi student or a Punjabi student shall not learn an Indo-Aryan language, he shall learn one of the other languages. No, that's also not necessary, according to me.
So what structural changes will you suggest to reduce dropout rates?
No, there's one more point. I think I missed it, Doctor. These tribal students speaking tribal languages, students speaking minority languages, they face what is called a 4-language burden.
Yes, I was about to ask you.
So they face what is called a 4-language burden. Let us say in Karnataka, my home state, there is this language called Tulu. and there is a language called Kurgi. Okay. And in the tribal states, in the tribal dominated states, the tribals speak a different tongue, mother tongue. Let's say tribal in Orissa, his mother tongue is something, but the medium of instruction is in Odia. So even Odia is an alien language to him. Then he has to learn Hindi and he has to learn English.
So he has to learn
effectively four languages. Now,
in addition to other subjects.
Yeah, other subjects. So what happens is, see, there are some, according to the 2011 census, again and again I'm coming back to 2011
because
census.
That's the evidence.
Because I believe that a policy should be evidence based.
Yeah.
I think there are something like 19,000 plus mother tongues in India.
Yeah,
19,000 19,000 plus. Government of India, what they have done is by an administrative fiat.
Sir, these are languages.
Languages, yeah.
They are not dialects.
No, they are not. Mother tongues are there.
So 19,000 mother tongue
in
languages.
India. So India is a country of phenomenal linguistic diversity.
Diversity, yes.
So 18,200 of these mother tongues have been lumped under the category others.
Artificially.
No, artificially or whatever you call it. So 1,359 mother tongues alone have been taken into consideration by Government of India, by the census authorities. And plus this one other category, others, and this 1,359 mother tongues have been grouped under 121 languages. I mean, they say these are, they come under this language family, 121 languages. So, and out of that 121 languages, only 22 languages are in the 8th schedule of the Constitution and they recognized as official languages. And if you look at schools, medium of instruction schools, it will be mostly only in these 22 languages. I mean, for example, Tamil Nadu will have only Tamil medium, Karnataka will have only Kannada medium, or Orissa will have only Odisha medium. So, all those, though the national education policy says students will be taught in mother tongue, they use a very funny wording. They say students will be taught either in mother home language or mother tongue or regional language or local language. Now, the thing is, for most people, the regional language is not their mother tongue.
Not their mother tongue.
Not their mother. Even if I am saying, let's say, forget about this. So let's say I am a Kannada speaker in Krishnagiri district. Yes. If he goes to a Tamil medium school, he speaks Kannada at home. He has to learn Tamil as the first language. He has to learn, English as a second language. And if he has to learn Hindi or something, it will become a 4-language burden for him. So for both tribal students and minority language students, this effectively becomes a 4-language burden. Now, in the case of tribal students, their dropout rate from school is 3 times the regular dropout rate. Their dropout rate is almost 35%, whereas the normal students is about 12%. There are many reasons for tribal students dropping out, but one of the main reasons is this.
This will only augment further.
Yeah, further. In fact, this is not me saying it. There is a famous educationist called Dheer Jingran or something. He did a landmark study in 2009 about this problem. And he said that the tribal students and minority language students are actually facing a 4-language burden. He called it a 4-language burden. Even learning 3 languages is difficult. For these unfortunate people, it's a 4-language burden. And these are not small numbers. As I told you, only 22 languages are listed as official languages in the 8th schedule. So speakers of all the 19,000 remaining mother tongues don't have medium of instruction in their mother tongue. You know, you may be surprised to know that there is an Article 350A in the Constitution which says primary education should be in the mother tongue. So what we are now doing is not in accordance with the constitutional mandate. And UNESCO also says primary education should be in the mother tongue. National Education Policy 2020 also says primary education should be in the mother tongue. The saying is one thing, but we are not doing it. We are not even obeying the constitutional mandate. Now you may say, you asked a question, you are saying what can we do about it? Now, as I said, 22 languages have been called as this one, but there is not much logic in that. For example, Sanskrit with less than 25,000 speakers is one of the 22 languages. If you say, okay, Sanskrit has got a lot of rich literature, yes, agreed. But then by that logic, you should have included Pali also. Yeah. Because Buddhist canon and Jainist canon is in Pali. So we have not included Pali. Then Bili, the language spoken by Bhil tribes, the number of speakers is 10 million, you won't believe it. You know, Bili is 10 billion, Tulu is about 2 million. So there are about 10 languages with speakers upward of 1 million. Now my point is, first you include these 10 languages in the 8th schedule. Make the number of official languages, increase it from 22 to 32, because only if you include it in the 8th schedule, you will get schools offering that as a medium of instruction. If not as a medium of instruction, at least as one of the language papers. Right now they are not being taught even as a language paper. Okay. There are 31 languages with the speakers exceeding 1 lakh. Now, I would say as a second step, even those all 31 should become any language. I mean, you should go by some norm. You can't randomly make some as official languages and leave out others. And I'll come to a point later. There are many languages like Awadhi, Bhojpuri, and all that. They've been classified as dialects of Hindi. They have millions of speakers, but they are shown under Hindi.
Yes.
In fact, I would say that you need mediums of instruction, schools offering those mediums of instruction also. So, my personal thing is we should recognize that learning 2 languages is enough. Let us first become proficient in that. Learning 3 languages itself is a burden, and our census data and other data show that we have not succeeded at all. It's a failed experiment. And for most children, especially tribal children and minority language speaking children, it is effectively a 4-language burden. So, are we going to speak, though the constitution says that they should be taught in their mother tongues, there are no schools offering those mother tongues as mediums of instruction.
So, are you saying that the new education policy is an effective dampener to tribal and minority speakers?
I wouldn't blame only this. Right from 1968, this has been a dampener. So now what happens is, as a result of this, is many of these tribal languages will get lost. Language aphasia, as you call it. We should be proud of our linguistic heritage. Of our diverse linguistic heritage. We should make every step to preserve them, or at least make sure that the languages spoken by 1 lakh people or more, at least they are preserved. Otherwise, even they will die. My suggestion is step 1. There are 10 languages spoken by people more than 1 million. Add them to the 8th schedule. Start schools offering those medium. Step 2. Add languages more than 1 lakh. That is 31 languages. The 10 are included in that. Yes. So another 21 languages will be added. Yes. Step 3. Recognize that all these Awadhi, Bhojpuri and Chhattisgarhi and Rajasthani are not really dialects of Hindi. They are distinct languages which predate Hindi by several centuries and which have rich literature of their own, and offer medium of instruction that also. I am saying this because your constitution mandates that. Article 350A says primary education should be in the mother tongue. Now, these mother tongues are not the same as the regional language. Exactly. We think just because we are offering a medium of instruction in the regional language of the state, it is enough. We forget all about the minorities.
This will also prevent these languages from becoming extinct.
That's a more important thing. Otherwise, these languages will die.
Every language is like a threatened flower or a threatened animal.
Finally, you will end up with only the 8th schedule languages, those 22 or whatever number. And then again, there will be atrophy within them. And finally, you may end up with only English and Hindi.
So, linguistic diversity is as important as biodiversity.
Biodiversity, yes, equally important, I would say.
So, every effort must be made to nurture, protect and grow all these languages which are about to become extinct. But this national education policy, instead of doing that, is doing what is contrary to.
No, I would not say they are doing contrary. They have said the right things. For example, they have said children should be taught in.
But the practical implication.
But they have not. Said how it can be implemented. They have not gone into that. See, there is no point in making utopian statements. Anybody can say that. But they should also gone into the nitty-gritty of where we have failed so far. Good policy would have said, since 1968, we have had this 3-language formula. We have found the following shortcomings. We have found the data says like this. Tribal children and minority language children are disadvantaged. So, the national language policy recommends to the government of India, please notify all languages with speakers in excess of 1 million as 8th schedule languages. Please take steps to prepare textbooks and mediums of instruction and all that, train teachers in these languages. Something concrete like that should have been there. Nothing is there. They just, even the cognitive benefits you asked me last time, they dismiss the whole thing in one sentence. It's not, you have to cite some international research. I cited this handbook, the Cambridge Handbook of Third Language Acquisition. They should have cited something. They simply dismissed it in one sentence. Even this mother tongue instruction also, they dismiss it in one sentence. So, there is also a concept called contextual multilingualism. Contextual multilingualism means you will learn a language if the context demands it, if the need is there. For example, as an IAS officer, I am from Karnataka, I was allotted to Tamil Nadu. I had to learn Tamil. I had to pass a departmental exam in Tamil. Similarly, you will find many film actors and actresses, they act in multiple language films. Exactly. So, their job requires them to learn new languages. Yeah. You will find tourist guides speaking multiple languages.
Several languages.
Several languages. A Malayali nurse in, let's say, going to Dubai, she will speak Malayalam at home, she will speak Arabic in the hospital, and she will do her paperwork in English. So, If the context, policy, you don't need a policy, to thrust a third language down people's throats.
Exactly.
They will learn 3, 4, 5 languages if the context demands it.
Exactly.
So,
I know Tamilians working in Uzbekistan, speaking Uzbekistan language.
So people, and you can learn, it's not true that you can learn only when you are very young. In fact, as I said, Cambridge Handbook says, first ensure that L1 and L2 are sound before you start teaching a third language, L3. So I think we are just not, our decisions are not grounded in research, that's what I would say.
But NEP says there is no compulsion.
See, on paper there is no compulsion, but in reality there is a compulsion. I will tell you how. What they are saying is, we are not imposing any language on any state. States are free to choose whatever third language they want. Students are free to choose whatever third language they want. Let us say in your own native village, in the school where you studied, let us say 30% of the students want Telugu as a third language, 30% want Malayalam as a third language, 20% want Kannada as a third language, 10% want Hindi, 10% want Sanskrit. You really think it's possible for a school to hire 5 third language teachers?
Absolutely impossible.
It's not possible.
Even now we suffer from paucity of teachers.
No. Even in rural schools don't have teachers even for the core subjects like maths or...
We have one teacher schools.
One teacher, you don't have for Tamil or maths or science. So when that is the scenario, how are you going to engage? And even those respective states don't have those third language teachers. So how are you sitting in Tamil Nadu going to get Telugu teachers or Malayalam teachers or this like? So what happens? Finally schools will say, look, we can't offer you so many choices. We will offer you only one language, Hindi or Sanskrit, or some schools may say both, take it or leave it. It will default to Hindi or Sanskrit. So they are very cleverly, earlier the policies used to say Hindi explicitly. This time they are not saying it, but because they know that sheer economics and logistics will dictate that only one language can be offered as a third language, and that will be either Hindi or, because there they were fairly steady supply of teachers.
Exactly.
Already textbooks and other things are ready. You don't have to prepare, afresh. So,
and those cream schools in any city will not take chances with multiple teachers.
So it will
appoint a Sanskrit teacher.
It will default to Hindi and Sanskrit. This is first point, doctor. The second point is, it is not affordable. For example, let students learn any number of, I learned 4 languages, I told you. Let students learn any number of languages privately, nobody is stopping them. But can government schools teach 3 languages? The answer is no. I'll give you Tamil Nadu example. We have something like 8,040 government and aided high schools and higher secondary schools.
Okay.
I'm not talking of middle schools, and I'm assuming that you are teaching the third language only from 9th standard. I'm assuming that. So there are 8,040 high schools and higher secondary schools, government and aided. Even if you appoint just one third language teacher, just one, one may not suffice because you may need more. I'm just saying, for one third language teacher, in salaries alone, it's going to cost 560 crores rupees per annum, per year. Apart from this, you have teacher training, textbook production, textbook printing, classrooms, all these things are there. The infrastructure, digital technology, so many things are there. So it's not possible. Now, even if you can, let us say somehow you can muster the resources, is this the wise way to spend the money? Can't the money be better spent on improving our foundational literacy in L1 and L2? Can't the money be better spent on improving our science and maths? I told you in PISA we came 72nd or 73rd out of 74 countries because in reading, science and maths we were very poor. So shouldn't we be improving our science, maths and L1 and L2? And shouldn't we be introducing new things like artificial intelligence? Because China has already started. Even in Beijing, 6-year-old students are being taught artificial intelligence. Estonia, Finland, Singapore, all these countries have integrated artificial intelligence into school curricula. Now, instead of doing some future-ready things like this, do you want your money to be spent, time, effort and money to be spent on third language? That's my question. I believe that L1 and L2, first language and the second language, should be taught only in the classrooms, aided and enhanced by digital tools if necessary. But for third language, you don't need to go through the classroom drill.
You don't have to.
You don't need to. You don't need, because the reason is this. Artificial intelligence tools have become so advanced today that you can translate text, images and audio from any language X to any language Y. You can even translate text to audio and audio to text.
I read your article where you quoted your experience in Berlin.
For example, I went to Berlin,
Berlin,
last
you quoted
year.
your experience.
I visited the Reichstag, Parliament. They said very clearly the guide will speak only German. No, there will be no English guide. I said no. My wife said, how then why will you drop it? I said no. We have Google Translate. So even as that guy was talking in German, Google Translate showed me the text in English. So both of us read the English text and we could follow him. So this being the case, now with the artificial intelligence, our education scenario has completely changed, but we are still stuck to our old method of teaching the third language. I am saying for third language, by 3, even 4, 5, any number of languages you can learn. Supposing you go to Germany tomorrow, you use AI tools to learn German.
Your mobile can save 550
crores. Yeah, correct. As you rightly nicely put it. I think with the coming of AI, this third language teaching through schools, I think that's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. The smart thing to do is to focus your resources on foundational literacy in L1 and L2, maths, science and AI. And depending on the context, depending on need, depending on interest, let children learn a third language or fourth language or whatever using AI tools.
Oft repeated question all of us face when we go to Delhi frequently, that India needs a common language for its national unity, and that language is Hindi. Every time you go to Delhi, you hear your friends lecturing you about this. What do you feel about that, sir? What is the historical and contemporary evidence on this?
I think it is completely wrong. It may sound intuitively correct. So, as you know, there are many things in life which are counterintuitive. I mean, the earth looks flat, but you know that it's not flat. I mean, it isn't like that. This is one of those things which look intuitively correct, but it's actually wrong. Because if you look at India's history, India has always been known for its linguistic plurality, linguistic diversity. There has never been a situation, no king or no emperor in India ever said, all of you must learn only one language. Nobody ever said it. I mean, it is not in our history.
Exactly. Now only I think about this.
It has never been in our history.
No king has ever said that.
No king or emperor ever said that. Now, this concept of one nation, one language has actually been borrowed from Europe. So, people who decry colonialism, colonial mode of thinking, they actually borrowed unwittingly or wittingly from Europe. I tell you why. In Europe, there are two kinds of linguistic nationalism. For example, German states, where many small German states were there, each speaking German, but they were independent states. So Bismarck and as you know,
Austria,
they grouped them into German nation. Similarly, Italy, there are many small states, each speaking Italian. So Garibaldi and others, they grouped into Italy. That is one type of unification. Language was the driving force for unification. Then there was this Austro-Hungarian Empire before World War I. It consisted of many nationalities, people speaking many languages, Slavs and Hungarians and all kinds of people. So when that empire broke, so the linguistic nationalism came to the fore. So each country speaking one language, they all became separate countries. So in the Europe, what happened is, linguistic nationalism led to formation of countries, either by amalgamation or by fission and by separation, whatever. Now, to apply that idea to India, a country which has always been historically reputed for its glorious linguistic diversity, is not only incorrect, it is downright silly. It is like, for example, flattening a rich forest, a rainforest, and converting it into a manicured lawn.
That's what they are doing in Nicobar.
No, it may look neat, but then you have destroyed the whole forest system. Now you take the example of European Union. Now they have formed into a European Union. European Union has recognized 24 languages as states. Now, I think India's comparison should not be with an individual European country.
It must be with EU.
It should be with EU. Now, EU has recognized 24 languages as official languages. Now, just imagine what will happen if EU were to say French alone will be the official language or German alone will be the official language. You think the project will fail. So we should not impose a language. If at all a language is, that's the first thing. The second point, we should not be looking west towards Europe at all. We should actually look east. East meaning, I mean Singapore. You may have read this book From Third World to First World by
Lee Kuan
Yew. Third World to First by Lee Kuan Yew. He narrates his experience as first Prime Minister of the country. There he says that in Singapore, the dominant people are the Chinese.
Yes.
74% of the people are Chinese.
Yes.
Malays were some 14%.
And Tamils
were 9%. The rest some minorities, So there was, when Singapore became independent, there was a strong pressure from the Chinese lobby saying, make Mandarin the sole official language, make it the language. Now, Lee Kuan Yew, though himself was of Chinese origin, he said, no, this is not correct. This is unfair to the Malays and the Tamils and other minorities. Let English be the common lingua franca. Then people said, no, that's a foreign language. He said, no, it is neutral language. All people are equidistant from this one. And number two, it's a global language. It's the window to the world. We have luckily got English as a language. It is foolish to kick it away and bring in some other language. So he said English as the first language for better job opportunities, better employment opportunities, and your mother tongue, whatever it is, Mandarin or Malay or Tamil, as the second language. And parents also welcomed it because everybody realized that learning in English is actually improving your practical aspect. And learning your mother tongue preserves your culture. So Singapore model was a resounding success. Now Singapore is, as I told you already, in PISA they were number one.
Yeah.
So whether it is education or they are almost a first world country, first world country.
Yeah.
So this is one example. In fact, I told you Chinese there were 74% Chinese speakers. Even then he didn't impose Chinese on Singapore. Hindi speakers, guess what is the percentage of Hindi speakers in India?
Maybe 20%, sir.
True Hindi speakers percentage is 25%, but the census figure shows, 2011 shows 43%. Now there is a linguist scholar, India's foremost linguist scholar, J.N. Devi. He has written a book called India, a Linguistic Civilization. There he says, this figure is artificially inflated. 53 distinct languages like Awadhi, Bhojpuri, Rajasthani, Magadhi and all that. They have been called dialects of Hindi, though they are not dialects of Hindi. They are actually, they antedate Hindi by several centuries, even 1,000 years. They have rich literature of their own. So, and some languages like Banjari or something, they are not even intelligible with Hindi. I mean, totally. So, they simply added 53 language speakers and inflated the Hindi figures from 25% to 43%. So, G.N. Devi, he is India's, as I said, India's foremost linguist scholar. He says, if you take out these 53 languages, then the true Hindi speakers percentage is only 25%. Now, when Lee Kuan Yew with 74% Chinese majority didn't impose Chinese on Singapore, I think we should not be imposing Hindi with 25% majority. That's not done.
Sir, you also, in one of your articles, drew attention to the disastrous policy of one language, one country in Pakistan.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
See, for example, I don't know if you've read this book by this British historian John Key. I mean, he's written a book called Midnight's Dissonance. He's talking about India and Pakistan. Midnight's Dissonance. Both became free at midnight. So he praises India for its linguistic flexibility. He says, though India have been muddled through, I would say, because right from the Congress period, even before independence time, these guys were talking about imposing Hindi.
Yes.
If you read the Constituent Assembly debates, there are chaps who have said if you don't want to learn Hindi, you have no business to remain in India, and there are chaps who have spoken things like that. Even Nehru thought that creating states on linguistic basis would be detrimental to the unity of the country. So that's why he hesitated, and only after that Potti Sriramulu's fast unto death, he was forced to create this one. John Key says this was actually a very smart move. What he is saying
promoting
is
linguistic
diversity, creating that linguistic reorganization of states was what saved India's unity, according to him. And he says putting 22 languages in the 8th schedule was also a smart move, he says. And continuing with English as an associate language along with Hindi was also a smart move. He says if India had not done these three things, it would have been facing perpetual language riots. Now, Pakistan, they made the mistake that even during Jinnah's time, even when he was alive, he simply announced saying that Urdu will be the common language. Even in his time, there were language riots in East Pakistan. And then Jinnah died. And in 1952, then they backtracked for some time. In 1952, they again said Urdu will be the sole national language. Again, there were massive language riots in Bangladesh, East Pakistan. So this was actually the trigger for the secession of East Pakistan and the creation of Bangladesh. So this is John Key's wording. I think it is right. I mean, what he is saying is, India has remained united because of its linguistic flexibility, because of the way it has treated, it has handled its linguistic plurality. Pakistan stupidly tried to impose Urdu, and it split. That is the thrust of his argument. If you want me to summarize quickly, I will say number one.
Yeah, I want you to summarize. Yeah.
Number one, fix your broken school system. And we'll accept that you fixed it only when you participate in the PISA, next PISA and get a good rank.
Yes.
If you get within 50 or within 30
if you are
or 20.
Really caring about evidence.
Yeah,
Yes.
evidence. Then we'll accept that your school system is fixed.
Agreed.
Second, offer a sound foundational literacy in L1 and L2. First language and second language.
Right from primary school level.
Right from primary school levels.
And focus only on L1 and L2.
L1 L2.
Don't burden them with the third language.
The third language.
Okay.
First, let us be sure of this L1 and L2.
Focus with L1 and L2.
Focus on science and maths.
Agreed.
That's the third.
Right
Focus
from early age.
Early age. Focus on science and maths.
Agreed.
Then, fourth, as I said, add more languages in the tribal and minority languages into the 8th schedule. It is now only 22, and there's no great logic there. The Austro-Asian languages, the Tibeto-Burman languages, they are all left out. I think only Bodo or something is there. Yeah. All the others nothing else is there. So only the Indo-Aryan and Dravidian languages predominate in the 8th schedule. The other languages have been
protect the dying languages.
Protect the dying languages. Add them to the thing and observe your constitutional mandate saying that people should be taught. Maybe some deaths of the lesser languages can't be helped. We might try our best, but we should try to preserve our languages. At least don't allow languages spoken by 1 million
millions
people,
of
people to die. And,
yes.
Please give the honest figures of Hindi. We all know it's only 25%. And treat Awadhi, Bhojpuri and all as distinct languages and offer, let the schools be there offering those languages also. This artificially creating, boosting Hindi speakers figure, that's not going to help anybody. And there's one indicator, Doctor, it's a rough indicator I'm saying. The state of health of the movies, regional language movies, that's an indicator of how much the languages are trying.
Exactly.
The 4 southern languages, they produce almost 60% of the movies, 50 to 60% of the movies, and good or bad, but they are thriving.
Yes.
Marathi, Gujarati, Punjabi, once upon a time they had good movie and theatre. They are all slowly withering away under the influence of
Bengali
Hindi.
Movies,
They are all
nowadays,
slowly withering away under the influence of Hindi. So I think we should not, imposing, as I gave you the example of biodiversity, you don't, when you have a thick rainforest, dense rainforest, you don't flatten it and convert it into a lawn
garden,
and say this looks beautiful. No, we should preserve our linguistic diversity just as we should preserve our biodiversity. I think these are the main points. In fact, I would appeal to the National Education, for the Ministry of Education, Government of India, that please redraft your National Education Policy, drop this 3-language thing. It's a failed experiment. The data is staring in your face. So let us push for bilingual proficiency. I think Tamil Nadu and Singapore are glowing examples of bilingual proficiency. Tamil Nadu to a lesser extent. Singapore is a fantastic example. And Tamil Nadu has done better than the other states. One of the reasons is this. We are not burdening our students with third language. We have given some importance to English, not enough importance I would say, but this is one of the, I think Tamil Nadu example should be followed.
One last question.
Yeah, please.
So you think that the stand taken by government of Tamil Nadu is absolutely right?
No, let me put it this way. See, when they opposed Hindi in 1965 and earlier there were Hindi language rights in 1938, those were based on emotion. They were, they were based on Tamil pride and fears of Hindi imposition. They did not give all these rational arguments.
There was no evidence.
No evidence that time. No, they were not based on rational arguments. Whether the language rights in the late 1930s, language rights in the early 50s, and the language rights in the mid 60s. They were all based on emotion, but wittingly or unwittingly, they turned out, the Tamil Nadu government stand turned out to be right.
Right.
2 language, in fact, I would even think that because Singapore became independent in 1965, I would even think that Lee Kuan Yew's policy was based on his, what he saw in India.
Quite possible.
The anti-Hindi agitation took place here in 1965.
Yeah.
So he must have seen that what happened. And I think that he actually learnt a lesson from Tamil Nadu.
And vice versa.
Could be. Now, I personally think, I don't know whether you will agree with me, that if Tamil Nadu had not fought against Hindi imposition in 1965, and if Hindi had become the sole official language, national language of the country, then India would have actually regressed, because India would have missed the IT revolution. IT revolution was possible only because of English, the knowledge of English, and many other countries like France, Germany, Russia, Japan, South Korea, which are also China, which are also promoting their language in a big way, they all realized that English is necessary. English is the global franca. So all these countries, all the European countries, even countries like Russia, China, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, they are all pushing English as a second language in a big way. I can tell you from my own experience, 30 years ago when I went to Europe, in France or Germany, if I ask questions in English, the fellows won't reply. Now if you go to Europe, you find that almost everybody can speak in English because they have all learnt English. And if you see the metro train announcements in Europe, they are not only in French and German or whatever the language of the country, but also in English. Everywhere you find English as a second language. In museum exhibits, they display in French, they also display in English. They display in German, they display in English. They don't have any hang-ups like that.
Exactly.
They don't have any. So everybody has recognized, world over people have recognized that English is a important language. But our national education policy, you will be surprised. I think I forgot to tell you this. It devotes more space to Sanskrit than to English.
I saw that.
It is actually trying to downplay the importance of English.
I was a bit curious about that.
No, it is actually trying to downplay the English importance of English. And it has also effectively closed the doors on foreign languages because it says 2 Indian languages, only 1 foreign language. That 1 foreign language will always be English. Now, if you just look at Naukri.com, there is a website called Naukri.com, you will find at least 50,000 jobs in India asking for knowledge of French or German, or less than 100 jobs asking for knowledge of Sanskrit. 50,000. Now, students are forced to study French and German outside the school system. That's okay. Let them study the.
That is proof enough for the demand.
Yeah. Another mistake I would say with the national education policies is treating language more as a cultural pursuit than as an employment opportunity. But parents and students don't look at it that way. Yeah. They want to preserve their culture. Everybody wants to preserve their culture. At the same time,
they want to progress too.
Yeah, they want to progress too. So, they don't like, what is the point of studying Hindi or Sanskrit if it is not going to give any jobs, The old argument that, your job prospects will improve, that's also not true because as you know, what is the direction of migration of people within India?
From north to south.
From the Hindi speaking belt to the south or to the west or to Delhi. It is not from here to Hindi. No. If at all, they need to learn Tamil or Malayalam or Kannada. That is number 1. Number 2, sorry, I forgot to mention this. This is another interesting census data, Doctor. Census 2011 shows 63% of Indians born, live and die in the same village or town.
Yes, I have heard about this.
63% don't move out of their place of birth. 85% don't move out of their native district. 95% don't move out of their native state. So, if at all that movement at the margin is that 5%. So, why do you need a lingua franca like Hindi? Why are you imposing when only 5% of the people are moving across the state borders? So, for most people, the day-to-day life, whether it is at work, school, cultural pursuits, commerce, government, whatever, it happens only in the regional language of the state. But I think this is a very important statistics. As I said again, time and again I am saying, if you only look at your census statistics, the case for third language is effectively
closed permanently.
Closed permanently. And if you look at your own educational surveys, you realize that third language is not warranted at all. It's a failed experiment. I would say that, I wouldn't blame people for trying out an experiment. But once you realize that the experiment has not worked, wisdom demands that you change course. Course correction is needed.
Definitely. Thank you very much, sir, for this very, very interesting and for me personally a very great learning experience that you have made a well-rounded case right from the burden on children to administrative problems to the history and to the finances and the social progress, everything. And this is a evidence case for India's policy makers to abandon their non-evidence backed linguistic naturalism and prioritize educational pragmatism, putting students first. You also emphasized that this is time to discard the failed 3-language formula and focus on bilingual proficiency, English for employment, regional languages for cultural preservation, and use AI powered tools for learning any additional language of your choice when and if students need it. I suppose that most of our readers will agree with you. Thank you very much, sir.
I hope so. Thank you.
உன் கடவுளை விட உன் சாஸ்திரத்தை விட உன் முன்னோரை விட உன் வெங்காயம் வழக்கமாத்தை விட உன் அறிவு பெருசு அதை சிந்தி